For the live stream for
Many times I've been to Buford, I've actually never been over to Fort and love it. It's a great area. We are going to be discussing peer-to-peer texting tonight and how it's going to help the city, the town of Port Royal, engage with this. They're up to date on everything from minutes of the meetings to hurricane updates and everything in between. So as that's being pulled up, we will certainly dive into that in just a second. Thank you so much. So once again,
do me a favor and go ahead to the dais.
Here.
They'll be able to see, stand if you could.
Right.
Yep,
Yeah.
face us.
Face you.
So that way the cameras can all see you
Okay.
online.
Perfect. We'll do that.
They'll be able to
Hear
see
you
the
too.
screens of what's happening.
That's great. Testing. So we're going to go here? Great.
All right, good.
So, and I'm assuming you'll be controlling? Perfect. So peer-to-peer texting is really the purpose of the conversation tonight, as we'll be discussing how important it is to really engage with the citizenship as best as we possibly can in the population through peer-to-peer texting specifically. As an organization, we do handle a lot of the digital side of things for a number of different organizations, but obviously tonight we want to focus on how important, once again, peer-to-peer texting can be for engaging with the community. Next slide. Once again, my name is Cameron. This is Alex in the back. I'm not sure if we can see Alex or not. There he is. Next slide, please. So peer-to-peer texting specifically means person to person. This is really not to be confused with A to P or application to person, which requires an opt-in list. So it requires people to actually opt in to be able to receive those texts. With peer-to-peer or person-to-person, we can send out to the groups and to the data that we've already gathered from the community with their cell phone numbers and actually engage with them directly to communicate, once again, those messages that are most important to them as it relates to the meetings, town council meetings, town workshops, information about hurricanes, so on and so forth. And it also allows us to communicate directly with them. So if they message us, if they text back, you can actually communicate directly back with those individuals to keep an open line of communication going as best as possible and to update them on things that are going on in the community. It's also 100% legal and FCC compliant across the board. Why peer-to-peer? At this time, 97% of Americans have cell phones. Literally everyone has a cell phone, so it's a great way to communicate and get in touch with individuals directly. I'm not sure about you all, but emails are not fun because we have a lot of emails and they are coming through constantly. And I am constantly looking down at my cell phone to check text, and I get the most information or the most accurate information from text that somebody sends to me. So it's a very trusted way to communicate with someone, especially as the town council communicating directly with the citizens in Port Royal specifically. And also Americans check their phones way too much, 96 times per day, and 31% of adults prefer text to voice calls directly. So what does this tell us just across the board? It tells us that people want to stay informed, especially as a citizen of a community. I want to know what's going on in the community. Sometimes it can be difficult to go to events or meetings like this. People have a lot going on throughout the day. They have a lot going on throughout the week, whether they have baseball practice or swimming lessons, et cetera, to attend. So getting a text is a much easier way to stay informed as to what's going on in the community. And really that's where we come in. We help to deliver the message in a way that is quick and easy to engage with, especially as a member of the local community. Here is a prime example of this. Town of Port Royal, this is a message that would be coming from the town of Port Royal to a member of the community. This is your town council reaching out to you with minutes from last week's meeting. Go here to review, and then from there we can literally input a link that goes directly back to the website where your team can then inform them of the information on the website. But ultimately, they have the ability to opt out if they'd like to at any time. Example number 2, this is your town council reaching out to ask your opinion on an upcoming vote the council will have regarding banning plastic bags. Would you say you strongly support this? support doing this or oppose doing this. And frankly, you can get a really good feel for what the community thinks to really inform your decisions as a town council as well before going into or obviously directly following certain procedures and votes. And then third example here, once again, if there's a hurricane, as we are in hurricane season, Hurricane Matthew is now passed. We are assessing the damage to the city, and we'll keep you updated as to when the evacuation order will be lifted. Once again, these are great ways to engage with the local community and really make sure they have the information they need in order to stay on top of things that are going on within Port Royal specifically. Benefits of using peer-to-peer texting across the board: widespread reach for a very low cost, really helps to boost transparency between the local government and the community. And I think we can all kind of attest to the lack of transparency that certain government entities maybe come across the board, whereas 2 in 10 Americans trusting government really is not good, right? We want to make sure that we continue to improve those numbers and provide that transparency to our local community. And this is due to several reasons, but transparency is really a large part of that. It also creates a very informed citizenship, supports public safety efforts, and reduces negative feedback from the citizenship across the board. This process is just what it could look like. Doesn't mean it has to look like this, but just obviously our suggestion for what this process could look like moving forward. We could first initiate the send, so your town manager, Van Willis, or whoever is appointed to that particular role, will reach out to us with the date, time, and copy of the message. We can also help with drafting that copy and really creating the copy to make sure that it's presented properly for the citizenship. Next, we will then send out the text and then report on the statistics of the send, including confirmed delivery, messages blocked by carrier, and responses from recipients. We can also help in obviously re-engaging with certain individuals who might have specific responses that we think you all should be responding to in a much more timely manner across the board. And these are, once again, this is just an example of what that could look like. So, not to take up any more of your time, but that is our peer-to-peer texting presentation. Any questions?
Anybody want to start?
Just a quick one for me was just where does the phone list come from?
Yeah, so we have ways of pulling data already. We've actually already pulled a list of roughly 2,000 contacts from the local community, cell phone numbers that we were able to gather through data lists and data companies that provide that information. This is where we'd also make the suggestion, though, that we do some outreach to the community, whether that's via social media or the website as well, to make them aware of this opportunity to get more accurate and up-to-date information. But we do already have a list of roughly 2,000 numbers, but we will need to build that up over time, especially considering I believe it's 14,000 citizens in the community. So that will be built over time, and people that don't want to receive them, they can opt out immediately. But those that do want to receive it, frankly, it's a great way to engage with the community through the website, through social media, and really say, hey, we want to provide you more accurate and up-to-date information. Please, provide us with your name and your number, and we'll add you to the list accordingly.
Thank you.
Is this exclusive to Port Royal residents, or can anyone subscribe to this?
This specifically would be exclusive to Port Royal residents. This actual text campaign, yes. And unless you'd like for us to be sending it to others, but specifically for the purposes of this.
I ask also because I'm sure at some point they're going to have to subscribe to this service and download this app. But I mean, what would prevent someone outside of Port Royal from subscribing to it?
Yeah, so there wouldn't need to be. There's no need to download an app or uploading. That's the kind of beauty of this too. All we need is just the phone number from the citizen to then be able to send them messages. Also, we can always cross-check, the number and the information of the individual with the actual citizens list of Port Royal to make sure they are actually a citizen of the community. Make sure their address is in the city or in the town of Port Royal as well, and ensure that information is accurate. So if there are outliers, we can exclude from the list. But if somebody from outside Port Royal wants to receive Port Royal updates, good for Port Royal.
I was concerned about it, but I was just curious.
Yeah,
Do you ever clean up the list, and if so, how would you clean it up?
We certainly can clean up the list as time goes on, and I think really the best thing for us is to, as we receive new information over time, just go back through and make sure it is still accurate. And also, if people leave the community, they'll probably end up opting out of the list anyway, so it'll be kind of a self-cleaning method.
Press stop to. Okay. One of those deals.
You can respond and say just stop in all bold letters, and it'll opt you out immediately.
Kevin?
So yeah, I'll just say I wanted to bring these guys in and kind of tell, I was talking with them when we were up in Charleston at the Municipal Association of South Carolina, and just sounded like a really kind of interesting, kind of cool way for us to connect with residents, keep people informed. I mean, we have our newsletter, we have our social media, but as you saw the stats, I mean, everybody uses their phone nonstop. So especially with for what it takes, the cost and not the minimum. It's not a lot of effort. It's not a lot of work to get out a message to everybody. Sounded like something I thought would be good to entertain, at least even for a trial basis, and I mean, just give it a go. I like the idea that we would get responses back from people, like if they do type something out, like it's not just yes, no, they can, I mean, I'll look forward personally to going through that data and seeing what people are saying, and so I appreciate them being here, and like I said, that's why I wanted to bring them in and let everybody hear what they're doing. It's kind of cool. I think we'd be the only municipality in Beaufort doing it, so,
Only municipality, and there are not many municipalities in general doing this quite yet. There have been some state government, state-level individuals to actually engage with their local citizenship to this extent. Governor DeSantis of Florida is an example with COVID messaging as well. That's kind of a prime example. So the additional, once again, touch point, the additional engagement is going to be huge for any municipality or town.
And I see it being one of those things, it would be a process because we would be starting it, so we'd try a message, and maybe we send out, here's the agenda for upcoming council this week, and see what works, what doesn't work, and, I mean.
Well, there's a lot of people that don't come to council meetings because they can't, but they have a phone. And a lot of people want to come, but it interferes with church, so they'd be able to still respond, and you'd still be able to get their information, and transparency is definitely one of the most important things we have. So it's a way to get the message to all
And I
the
think
people
you have
here.
more people that have a cell phone than that's on social media.
Than anything, yeah.
And, you didn't talk price at all, but what are we looking at? I mean,
Yeah, so
magnitude-wise, just.
absolutely, and this is, and just up to that point as well, we can send literally in that text, we can include a link to the live stream, which I think Facebook live streaming is huge. So to your point exactly, it's like if people don't have access or they don't know where to go or they have other things going on, they can literally click that link and it will take them directly to that Facebook live stream, which would be, it'll get them there and also build up social media for Port Royal as well. And as it relates to texting specifically, we do charge on a per text basis. So it's 8 cents and 10 cents for MMS. So it's literally 8 cents per SMS and then 10 cents per MMS, which is more of like an animated text. But we were, as it relates to like the early stages of this as well, if we wanted to be more involved in more of a consulting capacity to say, hey, this is what it should look like from a draft perspective, really getting involved with every single aspect of this, we can certainly discuss other options as well for how we can help with engagement and the social aspect too.
Yeah, so I think right now we have about 1,000 people that get our newsletter. So if we take, $80 for 1,000 text messages.
Correct.
So, like
And
I
that's
said,
every time it goes out.
Yeah, so- and there's no fee for any responses and.
And there's no fee for response. It's just when a text goes out.
No, I appreciate it. My concern that initially comes to mind with this is, I like the idea of another way to communicate. We got to see if this is the right way. I don't like how the list gets started, that we're just we're creating a list because of things that most of us are not extremely happy about to start with, that Google knows everything we do, and then this, and then that, and then we're starting it that way. I've got to really think about that aspect if we were going to do something like this, to say that this is a viable way to communicate with our citizens, then I wouldn't want the list to be anything but an opt-in list. We would have to then get the message out to say, if you want to receive messages in this way, then you have to do this to sign up. I don't like the idea of just because they happen to be somewhere in Port Royal at some time and made some analytical list that now we're going to be sending them a message. That's my initial concern. I just want to let you know what I'm thinking.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure there's a way that we could do it with an opt-in only.
So there certainly is, and this is what I'd say too. Getting this out on the website and saying, hey, if you want to receive text from us, this is we'd like to start there. on the website specifically. But the list is also not too. It's not going to be based off of people that just come into Port Royal. They'll have to be citizens of Port Royal, and we'll make sure that data is accurate. We can always cross-reference that with other lists you maybe have as well from the very beginning. But I absolutely agree with you, especially with big tech coming in. It can be very frustrating what they are doing with people's information. We want to make sure that we're using information accordingly and responsibly too. So that's certainly something we're going to be focused on from the very
Yeah,
beginning.
I know I get frustrated when I just get a random text out of something because I went to some website and now on my phone and somehow or other I get that random text.
I like that.
So it's something we need to think about in that way on how do we, if this makes sense to do something this way, how do we do this?
Yeah, we got, like I say, we got the newsletter that we run out to 1,000 people. We got social media,
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
hey, sign up here, sign up here.
I'd certainly like staff to review, kind of think about this aspect, and so that we can talk more about this. I mean, it's obviously another layer, it's another good way of communicating.
It is work.
And the responses, how are we going to deal with the responses, who's going to be monitoring that, and that aspect. But I think it's an interesting way. So you said there's no other municipality doing it right now?
There are no other municipalities doing this specifically. That is
Okay.
correct.
So-
There are government entities across the board that have been doing this for some time as relates to like sending out and communicating via text. But at this level, there are not many that we are aware of that are doing it to this level, which is why we thought it was a great idea to start sharing this and getting this information out, to start making sure our citizens are more informed, we're engaging with them better across the board, and really getting people that might not have been involved before, getting them involved, and making sure we're sending them to social to get them to see everything that's going on and all the hard work that y'all are doing across the board as well.
Yeah.
Okay, we appreciate it. Anything else?
No, I believe it'll catch on. I'm sure we'll see it more and more.
Council, everybody good?
I'm good, thank you.
Staff,
Thank you.
any questions for him?
If you're getting nixels, then you're pretty much doing it right now.
Right. The Nixels is a different version of that. This is a little more focalized, I think, in that way, as I see the difference between those two in that aspect. So definitely need to do a little bit more research on this and work on this one.
Okay.
We appreciate you taking
Great.
the time
Yeah,
to come in. This
absolutely.
is how we learn about stuff.
Of course.
And we'll reach back out.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Cameron.
Nice
for
meeting y'all.
being
Have a
here.
great
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Next item is our council briefing. Van?
First thing I'd like to do is bring up Chief Beach. I think he has some folks he'd like to introduce to y'all. We weren't concerned about the audience tonight. We're just doing an introduction.
I have,
Mayor and Council, this is some of the newer officers. Sergeant Colson, if you will introduce them.
wait a minute, wasn't he a reserve officer or
Who,
what-
me?
something with the school, the RO?
Start with Brian. over there.
Used to be.
Yeah.
Introduce them, and you guys have like 2 seconds to,
You got more than that.
Yeah, whatever it
Sorry,
takes.
All right, on the end, I'm Sergeant Colson, and I'm gonna start out on the end right here. It's gonna be Brian Clark.
I'm PFC Clark. I came here from North Carolina May of last year.
Welcome.
To my left is gonna be Joseph McDevitt.
Because we did it in Wyoming about a year ago.
You go by Joseph or Joe?
How come you have police and not your last name on this?
You don't worry about no deals.
Different.
To my right is gonna be to my left, right over here is gonna be Anthony DiDonato.
PFC Donato. I moved here roughly 2 years ago in New York.
Welcome. I gotta ask, where in New York? Sorry.
You know Orange County?
I do know Orange County.
I'm from Monroe.
From Monroe?
Yes, sir.
I moved here in '86 from New York. Yeah, I did. It looks like about the same age. Let it go. Get out.
all these turned out to be excellent officers.
We appreciate
Glad to
it.
have them.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you all.
Yeah, we appreciate everything you guys do. We know what it's like out there.
Welcome to our small-town police department, but a
Sergeant
wonderful
Colson.
police
Thank
department.
you also.
And
Sergeant Colson.
Sergeant Colson.
Sergeant Colson.
Oh, okay.
And doors are always open. If you need any of us, you can reach out to us. We'll make sure Chief knows, but just to keep everything in order. But we're here. I'm sure that you'll hear things that trickle down from what this council is looking for. One of the things that we focus really hard on is traffic, and we know you guys are doing a great job with that aspect of aggressive driving and speeding. We appreciate all that, keeping all of our citizens safe and making the streets safe as could be. It's difficult out there. People are in a rush, and we are seems to be the thoroughfare to other places right now, so we'll do what we need to do. But stay safe out there, and thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Welcome to Port Royal.
The next item was tree protection, but Noah's going to cover that a little bit later. Next item, Spanish Moss Trail. Nothing really new, just keeping it on the agenda. I do know that you mentioned that the
Well, they had a meeting tonight.
Okay.
So Friends of the Spanish Moss Trail had their board meeting tonight. It was pretty interesting, the fact, I had about 30 minutes, so I went before I came here. And I didn't even realize that it was the first time that they had actually met in person because of COVID, since they were doing everything virtual, since I was actually on the board. Their last meeting in person was when I was still on the board, and everything has been virtual since then. So the whole group got back together tonight and had a meeting. I went because I was concerned about where we are with the crossing. We hadn't heard anything. I know that there was information passing back and forth, and I wanted to know where we were. I felt it was the best way to do that was go and ask the board for it. So where we are is that the permit has been revised. They believe they've met or got as close as they can to all the requirements DOT has put on the permit, and it is being resubmitted this week, and then we're on standby again to figure out what the next step is. But they feel fairly comfortable in that aspect. I didn't get any more than that. They moved it up on the agenda to talk about it so that I could leave and get here. So that was, I don't know what else was discussed at the meeting. They're probably still going on, knowing that group in that aspect.
All right. Next item is just an update on Safe Harbor. Virtual buoy, I know we had some extensive discussions, but that has been abandoned by the Coast Guard. There was a lot of input provided at a meeting or an interface with the Coast Guard, with the local harbor pilots and some other people in the industry. We did have assistance from Senator Campson, and then I do know that Senator Lindsey Graham's office got very involved, so that's not a concern. Obviously, that's kind of one part of our concerns. The second part is maintenance of that channel as it approaches Port Royal, including maintenance of the existing buoys and markers. Anybody that's traveled through there, particularly near dark or at dark, knows it can be a bit of a challenge. So,
Do we know what the next step is to get maintenance activated? Is Safe Harbor working that, or do we need to stay involved?
I think it's going to be multifaceted
Okay.
in terms of interface with Coast Guard to make sure those things are taken care of. Because, like I said, if anybody that boats and has been out there, you realize that those markers are not in great shape. And as a matter of fact, there is some shoaling at the mouth of that sea buoy. In some places, it's as shallow as I think 11 or 15 feet, and it's supposed to be a shipping channel. And obviously, with what's going on Safe Harbor, larger sailboats, you might have a 20-plus foot keel, and so we need to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Has there been any discussion on what type of effect that the sound is receiving from pumping and renourishment of these beaches up and down the coast out here?
I think most of the time you typically see those impacts on adjacent beaches. I'm not sure if they've ever measured it out there, but if you ever saw what was happening on Seabrook Island, its impacts on Kiwar or vice versa, or what its impact on Folly with Groins, renourishment does have an impact on adjacent beaches. We have the Coastal Conservation League here. They'll touch on that for us.
Jesse's like, no, please no.
But anyways, different office. So. But no, I'm not sure.
Well,
But
I certainly think we need to ask the next question, what's the next step? Safe Harbor led the charge on the buoy, let's ask that question.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we do have a meeting scheduled with them later this week, and based upon whatever comes out of that meeting, we'll brief council. I'll brief council next Wednesday on that discussion, which I believe is Friday, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Rebo Road corridor study, just about finished. I did put the draft of the study in your folders for review. Just some of the comments made by Tripp in regards to the corridor. He says it's teed up pretty well for pretty significant investment commercially. They did provide in the study itself some potential aesthetic improvements to some of the existing buildings. And then he did give you all some info relative to what kind of those economic development multipliers are, depending upon the sort of development. And then in that report as well is kind of analysis on the leakage that we're seeing, basically, which means business that could be conducted in Port Royal, which is being conducted outside of our 5-mile or 10-mile range. The money that residents or people are spending that conceivably could be captured here. And they did mention that despite the fact that there seemed to be a saturation of grocery stores, that this might be a window or a location where potentially one could be added that would serve the adjacent population.
On the study, are we going to do a full presentation to council?
Yeah, but it goes to the steering committee first.
Okay.
303 was involved in that, so it'll go there and then it'll come here.
Then come to council?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Next is Sands Beach. Repair work by the county is scheduled for September 12th. Hopefully wrapping up by September 30th. So that means the boat landing will be closed. And then after that, obviously, we will start the repair work to the pipe. Many of you have seen the iron plate that's covering the hole in the road. So we're waiting on fabrication of that sleeve, which is happening. What's interesting is that sleeve has to be delivered in a refrigerated truck because it becomes activated once it gets out into the elements. So obviously, we can't do that pipe work while the boat ramp is being worked on because of the large vehicle traffic will be going back and forth. But beyond just replacement of the floating docks, when I talked to Neil with the county, they will be looking to get rid of or dredge out some of that area around the boat landing to address some of the shoaling that's happened. So that will be good. Coupled with the work we did, I think we'll have almost a brand new boat landing.
Just to take a second and say thank you to the county for that. That's huge. I think it was $140,000.
$148.
$140,000 are put towards that to fix that. I don't know if you've been down to the floating dock, but I was worried. That metal, that space in there, somebody's going to get a leg cut off there. So it's
Especially at that time.
Yeah, so it's great that they're getting on that. Just wanted to say thank you to the county for that.
And then, we are finalizing the IGA between ourselves and the county because we will be taking ownership of the boat landing, but they've agreed to work out a maintenance agreement with us because that's a pretty essential boat landing to the network of boat landings in northern Houston County.
There was a question that while they're doing the boat landing work, we're still going to be there's going to be some sort of a path to the dock, to the pier. We need to make sure that we do, if we have to assist with some cones or something to get them along that edge and block off a parking spot or two.
Sure.
To make sure we leave access open to the boardwalk.
Makes sense.
During that work, it's no reason to close that for the 3 weeks as well.
Next is duck lines, ongoing issues there. We've actually, I had some discussions with the company managing the contract this week. Receptive, obviously jumped on it pretty quickly. However, we are talking to others to see if there's a little bit more local availability to jump on problems. We've had so much rain and so much heat this summer. Staying on top of that, algae in that pond has been somewhat of a challenge. When you get algae in the pond, it impacts the aerator. So it's working currently, but I don't expect it to be working tomorrow.
Is that what it's the aerator getting clogged up continuously?
Yes.
That's the issue that just keeps, gotcha. Yep. Yeah.
All right, codes, we have added Jeff Vordish to the codes section of the police department. He is very active. If you probably looked at some of the codes reports that you are getting, put in your report, I do expect y'all to probably get some phone calls. So just understand that it was decided that codes was a very important issue that we pursue, and it's going to be pursued full bore now. So just letting you know.
Mary Beth, I think you were getting some
Yes.
calls about trash, so.
So
this is
last
a good
week,
point.
yeah, thank you. Last month, we went into executive session, we came out and completely went straight, nobody made comments. And at that time, I was gonna make a comment because I had several phone calls. And one of the things is, it's very important to us for this town to be beautiful. We want people here. And once a month on Saturday, Ms. Kat Bray leads the group to do the trash pickup. Well, it's unfair for them to try to help beautify our town and we don't do it ourselves. So I've talked to Van numerous times, the chief has got involved, talked to the council. So this is the reason this position is coming up, and people will probably be calling because used to we'd say hey, if it's on the street, you don't know who it belongs to, but if it's in your yard, guess what? If you don't call and say somebody dumped it there, you're going to get the ticket for it. So it's going to be a little stricter than people thought, but we have to do that because we have to clean up the trash pickup that is going on in this town. I rode around, I'm sure Van is glad that this has now come out because truthfully, I'm one of those people that call him and say, I just came down the street and there's trash out in the middle of the street. You know, so you're not the only ones calling, we're calling too. So they've come up with a solution. If the solution doesn't work, please feel free to call us, but all of us are aware of it. We've worked hard on trying to get this done, and we hope this is going to be the solution to help continue to make our town beautiful. And it's not just the people on Saturdays going out and volunteering their time. It's the town doing our part, because I feel like it's part ours to get out there and make sure this stuff is done. So I just wanted to let everyone know.
Good, everybody good?
Yep.
Yeah, impact fees?
Yeah, impact fees. Y'all have a draft of the latest IGA, which is an effort between the county and the municipalities in the northern part of the county, addressing traffic, library, and recreation impact fees. There was a lot of back and forth between our staffs and our lawyers. I think we've come up with a final draft that accommodates most, if not all, of our concerns. One of them was making sure that we did see a return on the dollars that were being collected in the town of Port Royal. We did want to make sure that there was a capital improvements list that reflected the priorities of the municipalities. And even in the impact fee study analysis done by the county, they anticipate 80% of projects and growth to be occurring in the municipalities in the next 15 years, which is basically the blueprint that was created by the Northern Regional Plan. And so I think we're all prepared to get this moving forward. And like I said, I think we're all satisfied.
So, do we want to add this to next week's agenda?
I think we can add, and I'll get a
'Cause
little
we've
bit
already
further.
done
This
it
one
first.
maybe, I would wait until October for this
October?
one. Maybe housing, we could probably move till next, which we'll touch on a little bit.
Okay, so we're not quite ready yet.
Yeah, I think
Because we
this-
have a first reading already.
Yes.
And when we do add this to the agenda, because we've already done a first reading, we don't need a public hearing on this ordinance, but I want to make sure that we have time to let the public speak.
Right.
So I want to make sure it gets on the agenda early enough.
Right.
Because it's been such a long time between first and second reading, I'd rather open it back up to public comment, right? Everybody agree in that aspect? So let's think about it in that way and make sure when that item gets on the agenda, there is an absolute, normally we don't do public comment on second readings, but this one I want to have a public comment on second readings because it's been way too long since that first reading. And a lot has changed in the IGA, a lot has changed.
And that's the key.
We got to a good point that we're comfortable with, so it's going to have to be a full explanation of it in that way. Okay, good, thank you, man.
Shrimp facility, boats, we saw the two that they were having to let the federal marshal process play itself out. Basically, the boats have been arrested. They'll go to auction and be sold. So that you have to get those two remaining off the dock. I did talk to Tony this week about scoping out the demolition and any revisions to the permit relative to reconstruction of that dock. He has programmed into the capital improvement program where we are, anticipated funds, working out costs. So we're ready. Like I said, we just have to get rid of the two that are out there. And one of the other things I want to mention that I do want to incorporate into maybe next month's agenda is the derelict boat ordinance. I've given y'all copies of everything in your packets for this month. It's modeled after the Folly Beach ordinance, and it's something that's been adopted by the city of Charleston. As they're seeing the migration of boats from Florida, basically, up the coast, as Florida's adopted more stringent requirements for the derelict boats, non-registered boats. Spoke to the representative in the House from Folly Beach, who was real instrumental in getting the state legislation passed, which enabled the municipalities to kind of adopt these things. So it basically prevents, boats within your corporate boundaries on the water from just kind of showing up unregistered and blocking waterways.
Does it make the confiscation side easier?
It's ticketing,
Ticketing,
more
okay.
than anything else.
Gotcha.
Okay, everybody good?
Yes, sir.
CDBG?
Yeah, Royal Palms, project is go, contract signed, materials ordered, lay down yard logistics have been addressed. The major impediment to that one was settling the temporary and permanent easement issues with the preserve apartments. We've got that all squared away. And we're going to utilize the Beaufort County Good Neighbor ARPA funds to help with the cost changes in that contract, which is an eligible expense. And I think we're just about ready to roll on that one. All right. The second one is Paris Avenue. Since I brought Tony back on board, he's had a very good discussion with Michael Plink relative to making sure conceptual drawings get completed and some of the drawings associated with this one are incorporated. And that kind of dovetails into what I've got up next, which is federal funds and grants. We're submitting kind of a twofold drainage project, kind of addressing some of the issues up in 10th and the 11th Street area, which do incorporate Paris Avenue up on that end, as well as a component that addresses Madrid, West Paris, kind of the post office, Anchor Park area, which is also a portion of the tie into Paris Avenue. So we've got a couple of projects right there on Paris Avenue. We're going to really change the aesthetics, if you will, because we're looking at some curbing changes, some island changes, some crosswalk changes in that CDBG, but they've also got to, now we've got to kind of work in, if we're successful, these drainage projects. And that's, the drainage project we're submitting is being managed by the Rural Infrastructure Authority. And there's about $800 to $900 million worth of funds available across the state for water, wastewater, and stormwater.
Any question? At any point that they have even 30 or 50% conceptual drawings for Paris Avenue, I think it'd be good.
Yeah, well,
If we look
they've
at
been
that in a
instructed to
workshop.
retain somebody to do the conceptual.
Good.
All right, Naval Hospital sidewalk, I think we're pretty close on that. We have a pretty good source that knows the CO that I think got some good information. I'll let that source's husband summarize what she was told.
Yeah, so unusual conversation. A lot of people know, some may not know. My wife has worked on Paris Island 34 years. Her birthday is coming up. Happy birthday, Dawn. And the CO of the hospital stopped by to wish her a happy birthday and drop off a card. And in the conversation, it came up that I'm the mayor. And his immediate statement to her was, "We got the sidewalk, we're very close, let him know it's gonna happen." So that's the source in that way. But we've also had some email traffic as well. Van had seen, because I called Van immediately when I found out. Van said there's been some email traffic, so everybody keep your fingers crossed. 2016 is when we got the money to build that sidewalk. Just want to remind her of that. This is amazing in that aspect. So we'll see. He just got here, so he has a full term, and that's good because it seems to take that long for them to get this project moving along. And the last CO left us in a good spot. It was something he was briefed on when he came on board. I met him. I got to talk to him before the last CO left, made sure that it rolled over nicely, and it seems like it did this time. So, good.
Personnel, obviously, we recognized Cynthia at last month's meeting, but she has officially retired. Wow. Her position has been filled by Alexis Linder. We will get her to the next meeting to be introduced to y'all. She's working out very well. We had a part-time position helping out with administrative duties with building permits and zoning. Wasn't quite a good fit, so we're looking to refill that position again. So we will, and we've been working on some cross-training and all sorts of fun things to make sure we're staying on top of a very heavy workload right now. All right. Housing IGA, this is something I alluded to earlier. We did work at a final draft amongst the cooperating entities on how that agreement would be structured. And ours were, a couple of things was funding, which we've addressed, and how it would be funded. I think one of the formulas included 3% of ARPA, which we're willing to do because of the Good Neighbor Fund working with the county. And I think the other one had to do with, I think, kind of a management or how that progress or projects would be vetted and selected, and I think that's been resolved. And I think I got an email this evening. I think both Bluffton and the city are taking it up next week.
Okay.
So I think we can do that as well.
Yeah, I think it's time to put it on the agenda. Last night, everybody was at the joint meeting. We had a very open conversation about it last night. There's absolutely a little bit of leap of faith in this aspect, but we think we've got the right people in place this time. Alice, Howard is in the audience there. Thank you for everything you've done to help get this, and my comfort in the leap of faith is better that you're there. Wendy, we're lucky once again that one of the leads is Port Royal resident, Wendy Czar, for the county aspect, so we're at the point that it's time for us to take the lead. Van was able to work out the Good Neighbor Fund aspect, and the county, went back to the original amount, $500,000, so that makes it easier on us to do the 3% that's necessary. So I think we add it to the agenda next week and we deliberate it next week, but now's the time for conversation about it, if anybody has anything.
We chatted about it pretty extensively.
Pretty good last night. I know you didn't get to be there last night.
I'm good. I'm good.
Yep, let's move it forward. Put it on, add it to the agenda.
In the last, I referenced the spreadsheet, and I included it in your folders. Gives you all a really good idea of where each of these projects is working out, how it's being funding, and kind of the timelines associated with all of this. So just gives us a little better organization. Brooke has been working with Tony on that and getting it really structured. So you'll have some idea of when we have expectations in terms of getting those things done. And we've got two small projects that we're going to do right now, drainage related. One is down in the 7th Street area in London Avenue with some ditch work, reshaping, cleaning all that up to address that. And the second one is the post office. We noticed some sidewalk issues with, I guess, maybe saturation below it.
Yeah, lifts whenever we
Yeah, so
receive some.
both of those have been authorized and will be started in the next few weeks.
Very good. Any questions for staff on anything that wasn't updated? Anything we need to talk about?
I
Kevin?
was saying, when we were just speaking about it last night, we did have our joint meeting with the city of Beaufort last night, which, for those that were there, saw it was great, and we really appreciate them coming over here all the way from the city of Beaufort with their staff. Always look forward to those meetings. But one thing that came up last night was mentioned was how they had just recently passed their the stormwater guidelines, and that I knew it had come before our council before, and our hesitation was that the city of Beaufort hasn't passed it. So I didn't know if it was something that, since they have now passed it, if we wanted to bring it back up. I also see Jessie White here. I know she was heavily involved in it, if we have any questions or anything. But, yeah, it made me think about it last night. It was mentioned how they had passed it at their last meeting, so.
Yeah, well, just a quick update on that. They had McCormick Taylor review the manual to see what sort of impacts it would have, and I've got Michael doing the same thing right now.
Okay, so we're waiting for Michael's review on that. If there's no issues, there's still time to get it on the agenda for next week.
Potentially, yeah, if I get it back.
If not, we'll move it to October. Let's just see what his response is on that aspect. Anything else? Next, Noah, council, the tree ordinance.
Evening, Mayor, Council. I'm going to keep it brief tonight. I'll fill you in on kind of where I've gotten to from last month's meeting and the steps we're going to be taking in the following month. So I have been focusing on administrative issues with this tree ordinance. You know, kind of looking at each section of the tree ordinance. There's 4 sections. There's tree coverage requirements, i.e. you must have 1 tree per 3,000 square feet of lot size. There's tree removal, tree mitigation, and then landscape design or landscape planning in conjunction with new development. So one of the first things that I noticed is that we had a lot of focus on the reasonable design alternatives to preserve specimen and landmark trees. If you don't know, specimen trees are a certain size of a certain species, and then landmark is the next landmark, or milestone, I suppose, within that species size. So I'm just going to talk you through some high-level points, and then we'll get fine-grained. One of the major things I'd like to do is spread out that emphasis on existing trees and design alternatives through each section of this ordinance. One of the things that the county's tree ordinance does, which is similar to ours but not the same, is that they place priority on existing trees for new development in their tree removal section. It gives it teeth right away rather than saying, okay, you've gone through your site planning, but your last step, or one of the last steps in your site planning process, is a landscape plan. it makes it simpler for staff and for the developer to come to the table at the beginning stages and say, trees are one of the highest priorities on this site, so you must give attention and care to that now, rather than on the tail end of your site planning. So one of the other things that I've been looking at is, and we've talked about this before briefly, is just, should there be a step above staff review of trees? I've been working, the last design review board meeting, I figured out how to incorporate it into, not that I don't even think we got there, Jerry was there, incorporate the trees, existing trees into the site planning process in the preliminary review for the design review board, which doesn't normally happen. Normally it's infrastructure, the street grid, the architecture, that kind of thing. So, there are municipalities, I think, Mayor, you mentioned council, if there's a tree of a certain size, certain species, it goes to council, or a tree board is another option there. I think we are still up to date as a Tree City USA town, which I'm going to be working in the future to also make sure that all comes back together, because I think we may have lost that status at some point, and I'm still working on that. But anyway, I think that if we have that ability to say a tree removal does not meet any of the criteria in our code, that staff can say, this is out of staff hands, if you'd like this removal to occur, you have to plead your case to council or whatever board is designated. The other major thing, which is an obvious one, is mitigation costs and the way we credit people for saving trees in the mitigation process. So currently, if it's a landmark tree, you have to replace 50% of the inches that you removed. So say it's a 43-inch live oak. You either need to replace 21.5 inches of live oak, or you need to pay $100 per inch that was removed. And then if it's specimen, it's the same, but 33% replacement, or $50. All of that, I think that we have there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to bolster those numbers in a way that will actually encourage developers to place a priority on existing trees rather than paying out whatever is necessary to be able to do whatever they'd like to do. Something that was brought up to me today, actually, by Wendy Zara, is that Spring Island uses an appraisal system for individual trees on developed lots that people would like to remove, so that the cost of that tree is the cost of that tree and not an arbitrary number that we've placed as a burden on developers. So that's something that we're going to look into. And then the final thing is just to review the species list that we have. Every jurisdiction that has a tree ordinance like ours has a list of species that are protected and what their specimen and landmark sizes are, or specimen and grand tree size. And it can get kind of arbitrary. Obviously, there is a long list of native species that are a cultural thing or a strong natural resource. I just want to make sure that list is exhaustive, not leaving out things, and then also not giving priority to trees that are not seen as high priority in the tree canopy or urban forest. And so that's where I went this month. You all will be hearing from Jesse during the public comment period. I am working on getting a group together for over the next month to come together, both from conservation side of things, neighborhood side of things, and an administrative side of things, to start working on both trimming the fat in this ordinance and then bolstering the things that need to be bolstered. There are paragraphs in here that don't even need to be touched because I can't even process the information that are in those paragraphs, and then there are things that are left out. So that is the next step. I'm looking forward to gathering some input from people. Spent the weekend at Chris Marsh's house in North Carolina, and he talked me through all the things that he thought were important for Port Royal specifically. So we're slowly gathering information, bringing more people in for the next month, and we'll have hopefully a draft of an amended ordinance to you for next month.
And certainly we want to move forward with this, but we want you to do it just like you're doing it. We want you to be deliberate, take your time, If we've just got to update council again next month and we're closer, that's fine. We've got, you know,
I appreciate
we want to
that.
do it that way. And just come to us again, just put it back on the agenda next month again. If you're not ready, during the workshop, and just do this again.
Excellent.
I like where you're going with some things. I guess one of the questions that I have is, if we're moving those, do we get to a point of a certain tree that it's not 50% inches, but it's 100% inches?
And that's where
It
I'm,
just
so-
makes me wonder,
you'll see.
you know, things like that in that aspect.
And this was kind of a last minute addition to the council folder, but if you look at the comments that I have on the Word document in the council folder, there's some finer grained
Okay.
ideas there. And some of those things like, do we protect a specimen live oak the same as we do a landmark for any other species, and that kind of thing, to make sure we're preserving the things that we find most important culturally for our town, so.
What is the current penalty per inch right now?
Per inch, so it just depends on if you were, like currently you can, it's $100 per inch for a landmark.
Right.
$50 per inch for a specimen, if you're just paying the fee.
And are we proposing keeping that?
I would propose, and I don't have a number for you yet, but I would definitely propose upping those
Okay, because I
numbers.
said that's really nothing, you know. I mean,
Exactly.
40 inch and 100, that's only $4,000. That's
Yeah.
nothing to.
And then, yeah, just so one more thing to that point, Daryl, which I didn't really want to get into any of my particular comments, but.
That's okay, if you're not ready to get into them.
No, I do want to make this one point.
Okay.
We do have, you know, within our mitigation requirements, we allow people to mitigate by preserving existing trees at a 1-to-1 ratio. So if you save, and I'll use the example, if we remove a 12-inch magnolia and you save 3 3-inch magnolias, you saved 9 inches of magnolia. So really the person's only paying for 3 inches that are left in that difference. And so that's an incentive. It's worded as an incentive in the code. I think that it comes out more like a loophole in practice, and I think that's something that we really need to focus on.
Okay.
So that's the only thing I have to say about that right now, but we'll work on it.
Appreciate
Great
it.
job so far.
Thank you for where you are with that. I know it's a tough one. Van, a review of next Wednesday's agenda, and I know we've already added some items.
There's under council action, we have, all right, whose phone is near the microphone? All right, military enhancement committee funding for contract. The Chamber of Commerce has retained Matrix Consulting, our design group, to work on issues associated with some of our installations. And they were asked us to participate, and this is a request to formalize our contribution to $15,000 to participate. Obviously, we have 2 of the 3 installations in Northern Beaufort County, so that makes sense.
That'll be next week. Great.
And the next one is under council information, and there's a recommendation that y'all have from the Redevelopment Commission on potentially developing an incentive program to address maybe thresholds of investment or the rehabilitation of existing and abandoned buildings. And the way the city system works is if you do A, B, or C, you're entitled to an abatement of your municipal taxes, not county taxes, not school district taxes, but municipal taxes. And it's triggered by what the level of investment or the type of business or the location. And they've recommended that y'all start the discussion of potentially developing a program similar to what the city has to maybe draw some additional interest to redevelopment of the commercial corridor, which they are being charged with right now. And this is one of the first kind of recommendations they've come up with y'all. They've been interfacing and talking to a lot of the property owners in the corridor now, asking them, hey, what would you like to do? This is what we'd like to see. We're obviously waiting for the study to be finished. But what could we do to maybe incentivize you to come to Port Royal? And so I've included in your package just a quick summary sheet from the city to kind of give you an overview of what those things are. The specifics are in the ordinance in terms of, all right, if you do, $3 million, you're entitled to, 3 years of abatement of municipal taxes.
So you're looking next week just for us to have a conversation? Are they going to?
Yeah, just a conversation.
Just a conversation?
Yes.
Kevin?
And I was just gonna say, I was at that meeting and just kind of give you the overview. Their thought process was, it was brought before them, and, they have been, they're working on development of Rebo Road, and Rebo Road runs right into the city of Beaufort, and it was brought to their attention that there's this tax incentive in the city of Beaufort to build in the city of Beaufort, and so if you're a developer that's looking to bring up, like you said, $3 million or some sort of investment, you're looking, hey, on this side of the street I get this, and on this side of the street I don't. They just thought it would be a way to kind of bring us up to par with what's being offered, right down the street from us. So that was their thought process in the meeting about it.
To draw businesses here.
Or just to make us even,
So my thought is, how do we go to the next step here? I mean, conceptually, I don't see a problem with this.
You draft an ordinance.
Do we even need it on the agenda next week, or can we discuss this right here, right now, and then give it back to you to start drafting an ordinance? I don't, conceptually, does anybody have any problem with that incentive aspect? We really need to get an ordinance in front of us and see what it looks like, right? I don't know that it needs to be on next week's agenda. I think we can handle it right here, right now. We got the documents in front of us, and I think it's a good idea. I think it's a really good idea, especially what we're trying to do along Rebo Road. So let's save the week and go ahead and get started in coming up with an ordinance.
I don't know that I'll have an ordinance drafted next week.
No, I'm not saying to have it ready for next week, but let's save the week to telling you to get started on it, and let's go ahead and just get started on a model ordinance.
It would still need two readings.
Let's do two readings.
You
I'd like to.
definitely be prepared for October.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
I think that's the way, let's get the model ordinance, and I'd like to hear from the redevelopment commission also how they think that they would utilize that ordinance. So please keep them involved and say, here's what we're thinking, how would you utilize this to present also? So maybe they could join us when we get that first reading on that ordinance.
Yeah, because, obviously they're focused on just Rebo Road. I mean, y'all have to consider, what and where and how.
Yeah,
Maybe
we can,
more. So.
we can think about that as the ordinance comes forward. Kevin, were you thinking maybe just doing it on a title only to start? I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable with that.
I thought we would discuss it next week. So if you want to just go ahead and tell them, get working on it.
That's what workshops are for in
Sure.
that aspect. We don't need that at a council meeting.
Right.
If everybody's good, I think you got your marching orders.
All right.
Okay? Something to cross off the agenda.
Yeah, and the next one is discussion of October council meeting. I think several of you have conflicts for October 12th. So we could combine both the workshop and the council meeting for the 5th.
Yeah, I think there's going to be, I think the way we might want to handle this, Van, at this point, so people don't have to make decisions tonight, is to take a look at, everybody take a look at the council, their calendars, and see if there's any way we can do a single meeting in October on October 6th, Thursday, October
The day after
6th.
the workshop?
There wouldn't even be a workshop. It would be a single meeting, one night, workshop and council.
On a Thursday night?
On a Thursday night. We have a bunch of us that have different conflicts in September, and we're trying to find a way that a whole bunch aren't virtual.
Whatever the consensus is, I'm open.
Yeah, so let's everybody look at our calendars. We'll send an email out, and we'll talk amongst ourselves back and forth that way. We all had a bunch of stuff going on in October. Some personal, some business. It was crazy. Seemed like it all came together in a single month for all of us. Does that, obviously, it's got to work for staff as well,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
you got to kick in as well.
Oh, darn, we can't come to one more meeting at night.
One more meeting? So there'll only be one meeting for the month,
No,
and
that's
it's
what I'm
moving to
saying.
one day.
You're deleting one meeting. I
Wait.
think we'll be okay.
You'll be okay with deleting one meeting in a month? Okay. Okay.
All right, important information dates. Monday, September 12th at 5:30 PM is the Zoning Board of Appeals, right here, Town Hall. Saturday, the 17th at 6 PM is the last street music performance on Paris Avenue. Also, on Tuesday, the 20th, we have the Redevelopment Commission meeting at 4:30. Saturday, the 24th, from 11 to 5 is Oktoberfest. And October 1st, from 11 to 9 PM is the Food Truck Festival in Paris Avenue.
Can I just mention one other date?
Yeah.
The 24th from 4 on, so that's kind of right at the end of Oktoberfest. the 11th Street Docks, 11th Street Fish Camp is doing Turning 4. They're doing their annual shrimp boil, and the proceeds this year will go to Help of Beaufort.
Nice.
So want to make sure that everybody gets out and supports the Help of Beaufort, so.
So don't fill yourself completely up at Oktoberfest, save some room, eat early at Oktoberfest, and then go over to Fish Camp.
Yeah, because that helps Help of Beaufort.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Let's just add that to the agenda for next week to remind everybody again. Any other dates or any other important information anybody wants to share? Council, have any comments before I open it up to the public? Anything we need to talk about?
No, sir, I have done.
We're going to go ahead and open it up to the public. I've got a few people that have submitted in no particular order. I know everybody, so sorry. Wendy, he popped up first when I shuffled. Wendy's R.
Hi, I'm Wendy Zara. I live at 1012 14th Street. The thing I've been focusing on trying to figure out about the tree ordinance is the value, the dollar value of the trees, as Noah alluded to. I think it's really obvious from all the evidence that whatever amount of money we're charging is a cost of doing business, and they're happy to pay it. And we all know trees have value because of things like flood control, pollution, cooling, carbon cap, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there are organizations who have tried to measure those values. There's also an organization that for tree appraisals, just like you'd have a real estate appraisal, this is a tree appraisal. So that's kind of what I've been researching. I would, of course, love to see the language tightened up, but also I think if we want to make somebody really pay the price of cutting down a tree, especially a big landmark tree or a specimen, we may have a way of measuring it. It's not going to be totally scientific, but to back up, you know, if council, whatever that number is, if council decides to adopt that, that's where I'm headed. Not just a subjective, oh, that tree's worth $50,000, but how do you get there? So that's what I've been doing, and thank you very much for being willing to look at tightening up that ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil and Debbie, and I'm going to destroy that last name. No, I'm going to destroy the last name. Schlotzhauer?
Yeah, we got married, I was Greg, and I'm trying to get him to take my last name. He wouldn't do it, no. Okay, my husband and I reside at 75 Scipio Road. Our problem is that our next door neighbor at 61 Scipio Road does not mow his grass. As a result, we are experiencing problems with snakes, rodents, mosquitoes. It's only been mowed twice this summer, and you know how rainy it's been. It was mowed on June 22nd and July 22nd, and that only happened because we complained. I was told this last time that I had to complete a police report online, which I did on August 20th. It was accepted on August 22nd. That'll be 3 weeks this Saturday. It still hasn't been mowed. Nothing's been done. Another problem is that when they mow, because the grass is so tall, they don't mow it close. So within a week, we're right back where we started from. It looks horrible. And there is, in the ordinances, Section 10.5, health hazard enumerated, where it says growth of grass or weeds is not to exceed 18 inches. Show them the picture. And this picture, I took it from the road, but you can still see how tall it is. There's places where the field lines are, it's like over 4 feet tall. And I don't know what to do. I mean, we did what they told us to do. We filed the police report. I went online, I did that, and nothing's happening. And I don't know what can we do?
Staff's heard, they'll check, they'll figure out where the police report is. As you know, we've worked with you before on this, and we'll get you an update, It's not, there's no way I can comment or anybody can comment on this tonight. We hear the information, we certainly would. If you, earlier on, you heard, we put another codes enforcer in place.
I know, and you helped us before with the other problem,
right.
and we appreciate that. But we didn't know what else to do because.
This is fine. This is what, you have the right to
You
do
know,
this.
3 weeks later and almost 3 weeks later and nothing's been done. So that's the reason we thought, okay, we'll bring it to y'all.
We'll find out what's going on.
Okay.
Maybe something's been done, but the process takes the process. Take your pictures,
Thank
Richard. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kit Bruce,
She stepped out.
she stepped out. Jesse White.
Thank you. I have some copies of the notes, they're essentially notes that I'm reading from, just compiling ideas and information. And
Thank you.
I have one for you too, Noah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I feel so flattered by all the shout outs this evening. Thank you. Although I don't know all the information about beach renourishment. But thank you, Jesse White with the Coastal Conservation League. This document, first, I just want to thank Noah for his comments and the work that he's already doing. I think he's identified some of the weaknesses that I had identified as well. And so I was hoping to just kind of do a walk through kind of high level also of what I've identified. This document starts by including a recommendation to include language that specifically has a purpose, an intent behind the tree ordinance. In looking at several other jurisdictions, they include language at the very beginning that kind of sets the table for the purpose of these standards, and I think that's a key point that's missing in the current ordinance. And in that is where you can talk about things that we all know, but are still important to remind, the ecosystem services that trees provide in terms of stormwater control and natural floodwater abatement, pollution control, all of those, reducing the heat island effect, all of these things that kind of provide communal public benefit. And it's also an opportunity to kind of proclaim that the town cares about its trees as a historic resource and a cultural resource in the town. I included language that's from the City of Conway's ordinance because I thought it was really kind of quirky, but also compelling because they start by telling a story of kind of where the history of tree protection and the really strong values that the community has in their trees and retaining them to inform the rest of the ordinance. So I included that language there. I think that should be a relatively easy lift to add to the ordinance. As Wendy mentioned, establishing some sort of valuation framework, I think, is another key missing piece in terms of both identifying the value of the trees themselves, but then also thinking about if a tree is going to be removed, what is the true loss of that public resource to the community? And there are lots of tree calculators out there. I've found on just doing a quick Google search where you can plug in your location and whatever information they're compiling, they basically run an analysis and estimate the valuation of the tree based on the specific species of the tree, the size, and the location. So I think that's really interesting. I also included a site here to a Growing Greener Cities book that was published in 1992 that cited the compounding value of a tree. They break it down based on erosion control, wildlife shelter, various benefits that the tree provides, but essentially overall compounding over the lifetime of the tree. The value in this particular format was $57,000. So substantially more than $4,000 in the previous example. I think that, as Noah mentioned, really emphasizing the policy of tree retention over replanting is another key missing piece, and I did include some language from the Beaufort County code where they are encouraging design alternatives to be explored, as Noah said, at the top. So really at the beginning of the ordinance, if somebody were to just open it up and look, they would know that that's, you know, an important component to the town and something that they need to be considering early on in the process before they've made too much of an investment in their time and resources. Another suggestion from the county's the code is language prohibiting or penalizing clear cutting. I believe the county's code requires that if a landowner is operating under the guise of forestry and wanting to cut down the tree, they can't turn around and apply for a development permit. It's essentially a way to kind of circumvent the rules, and so there's a clear penalty for doing that, in that you have to wait 2 years before you can get a development permit if you were to clear cut. So I think that's something that that the town should consider. Another interesting recommendation from the town of Conway was they call it a licensing requirement, but I think there might be some affidavit or some document that could be signed during the permit application process that can be included in the file, just certifying that the tree ordinance has been reviewed and the necessary parties working on whatever the development is have reviewed it. That way, there's no hiding the ball, and it can be, the town can feel assured that the ordinance has been reviewed by the necessary parties. The review criteria that needs to be met before a permit for removal is issued, I think also can be strengthened. I think there are minor tweaks in the language. I included just some ideas there in my document for consideration, and I think all of this, this is all just thoughts and subject to further discussion and consideration, but I thought it was worth providing it to you all to see and kind of be thinking about it as well, what might work here in the town of Port Royal. Another idea was to have a separate review process specifically for landmark and specimen trees, just given their greater value and resource value. And that could have particular criteria to go along with it. I think one component of that can be, or it could be a separate component altogether, is having the tree advisory board that can review applications or kind of review those tougher cases where it's unclear. Several of the municipalities I looked at had a staff level initial review, and then they would send it to a tree advisory board to kind of work through the more technical, more site-related issues in terms of design and alternatives. And I thought that sounded like a pretty reasonable approach, because if it's not necessary and it's clear cut, it might not even be needed to go to a tree review board, but it gives you that kind of layer of accountability and transparency should it be needed. And the last couple of things I just wanted to highlight: a baseline tree survey or an inventory of the existing trees could be really helpful. That's something that the city of Beaufort has identified in their comprehensive plan, both the 2010 plan and the update, as a priority. And perhaps it could be something that could be performed jointly, given the proximity of the jurisdictions. But having some sort of baseline just to know what exists out there, I think could be really helpful. And it would also be an opportunity to highlight some of the most special trees that exist in the town, because there are a lot. And in particular, there's the oldest and largest in all of Beaufort County that's located in Port Royal, associated with the former Cherry Hill plantation near Pinckney Retreat. I don't know that it's known that that exists, and it should be a real asset that the town can, highlight and hold out as defining the town. So I think there's an opportunity to kind of do more mapping or inventorying of resources in order to kind of capture them and then have actual maps and data to point to in why certain areas are worthy of protection and closer scrutiny going forward. The last thing is stormwater standards. Thank you, Councilman Phillips, for referencing that. And I had forgotten that the town's current ordinance does provide credit for retaining trees. The stormwater standards, the SoLoCo standards do that as well. So it could be a double incentive to have those standards adopted and including it more outright and folded throughout the ordinance more clearly, I think would go a long way. And another edit that the county just did recently in their tree ordinance this year was to ensure that if trees were planted as mitigation on a property, so for instance, they got a permit to remove the trees, they had to plant a certain number as mitigation. What the county was seeing is that folks would wait a little bit or even be instructed by their contractors to just hang tight and get their CO and then go cut those trees right after they've been planted or identified as mitigation trees. So that's another thing that I am flagging because I think it is a potential loophole that jurisdictions aren't thinking about, and the county has some language that could be helpful. So with all that said, thank you. Thank you for your willingness to consider all of these changes and for caring about these important resources that define the town and its heritage.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Councilman Howard, always. You're kind of public. We should just add you to the agenda. Update from Councilman Howard.
I don't always have something to say. Wanted to let you know we are moving the green space ordinance through the wickets, and it went through Natural Resource Committee on Tuesday with very few changes, and it will be going to the full council. That has to be done before it can be put on the ballot for the referendum in the fall. This isn't in the town, but it will help the town too, I think. We are putting in a gate at the Shell Point Park that will be similar to the gate that we have down at Fort Frederick. And hopefully that will cut down some of the drug activity and other things after dark at the park, which some of it comes from the apartments. I mean, Alan knows very well. That's the one step we're making, and with the church being built right there, we're hoping that will help. There's been an earmark for hold on, I dropped my notes. Congressman Mace has an earmark for the Shell Point stormwater, which will also benefit Port Royal. We're waiting on that, $7 million something. So if we get good news, we'll be telling everybody about it. So that was the plans to handle all the Shell Point stormwater issues. So, and I think that's it. I enjoyed it last night. Last but not least, I think y'all already know about it, the ribbon cutting at the new autopsy suite in the coroner's office, which we're all, it's a very critical thing to have that locally. It will help families. 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Hope to see you there.
What is that?
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Yeah, it's tomorrow. Yep.
Tomorrow. That's it.
Over
Yep.
here, off of,
So we won't have to. the police, yeah, the police and other people will be able to have the autopsies done right here, right away, instead of,
Pathologist, right?
Right.
Pathologist.
right. Mhm. Yeah.
One question, Councilman Howard, I'm gonna forget the name of the pond, Jerry, you probably know it. What, Azalea Pond down the bottom of the hole.
Arthur Horn.
Arthur Horn, right?
Yeah.
It is the Arthur Horn, I thought.
We- uh-huh.
There was some conversations about doing something of that, is that moving along?
It's moving.
Okay.
They applied for one grant and didn't get it, but they're keep trying for some other state money, and there's some good chances for that, so.
Yeah,
They haven't given up on it. It's camellia, azalea,
Right,
all
'cause
that
it also,
area.
it's all Smilax, it's all over
Right.
Port Royal,
Mhm.
and that's all surface runoff to there, and I wonder if it isn't make sense to expand on that to do a stormwater system up
It-
through there.
Oh, yeah,
That way, rather than
that's-
just running across the streets.
That's what they have planned, and it will
Okay.
be, kind of a copycat, hopefully, of Cypress Wells.
Of the Cypress Wells.
Right.
Very good.
Yep.
Great. Thank you very much. Anything else? Anybody else? Hearing nothing, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.